So we know that exercise is a huge component to any type of rehabilitation for an athlete with any type of pain. What's the literature tell us about the role of exercise and pain?
Well, it's really intuitive for us as clinicians to just say exercise reduces pain, but there's really not a lot of direct knowledge on how that works, how that process works. Exercise is really interesting when it comes to looking at, we do strengthening exercises, for example. Strengthening exercises have actually a global effect on pain reduction, believe it or not. There was a study that was done on patients who had neck-shoulder pain. And not only did they reduce their pain in the neck and shoulder, but they had decreased pain throughout the rest of the body. So something's happening with this central mechanism. It's probably not just tied to strengthening exercises, but I think that has a key component. We know things like when you have an endurance runner and when we run, we do aerobic activity, you release the endorphins. So people claim that that's another mode of pain relief. But I think it goes beyond that, because weight training may not release the endorphins that other types of exercise do. So that's from, I think, the kind of processes of the internal body of how we see pain relief. But from a more of a biomechanical perspective, obviously when we do our exercises, we're prescribing them for very particular problems which may be causing pain. For example, muscle imbalances, so you have to stretch a muscle or strengthen a muscle or create better movement patterns. And I think that's the other side of pain relief, is we're actually restoring the body's tissues into the ways that they need to move so they don't cause pain. So, we as athletic trainers, therapists, we do a lot of very prescriptive exercise from rehab to performance. And one of the things that I always struggle with is I think we do a pretty good job of prescribing our exercises, but it's that next step, right? It's the performance side. And you've done a lot with kind of bridging that gap between the end of rehab into performance as a coach. Tell me a little bit about kind of your thought process on how do you then take that athlete who's gone through exercise and rehabilitation and then mold your prescription to that individual athlete's needs?
That's a great question, and it really is a lot of the art of what we do, right? We practice an art based on science, and we really have to be able to transition that science to our individual athlete that's in front of us, because everybody expresses their pain and their movement dysfunction extremely individually. Yeah. And so as clinicians, we really need to address not only the cause of the pain, but also the source of the pain. So
right.
We've got to look at both of these things. And so for that bridging the gap from rehab to performance piece, for me, it's really about introducing athletic movement to a person. So I've worked with different sports, as have you. We all have worked with different things, and the fundamental athletic movement is really universal across the board. How does someone accelerate? What's their absolute speed mechanics look like? Are they able to decelerate? Can they get into an athletic base? Can they do a crossover? All these sort of fundamental movements that make up linear and multi-directional movement is really the key. And for me, a missing component when people are trying to bridge that gap from rehab to performance. I think people try to go from this therapeutic exercise or corrective exercise into a baseball-specific activity. Whereas if we go from that corrective exercise to an athletic movement-specific activity, and then we progress that into a sport activity, we kind of have that missing link.
I think that's awesome, because you're exactly right. That is the missing link. That's that gray zone that even athletic trainers, strength and conditioning specialists, physical therapists, we kind of miss that. I'll be the first to admit that I would go straight into that return to throwing program without doing those specifics for, like you said, the basics of athletic fundamentals. That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.